Welcome to Coastside Poetry. Thanks to those of you who've zoomed in and those who are watching on YouTube. We meet either physically or virtually on the second Tuesday of every month to celebrate spoken poetry. I'm Diane Lee Mumi, and Steve Long and I are your hosts this evening. Our featured poet event is being recorded and streamed live onto YouTube as we speak, so anyone can look at it later. We'll be posting the link on our website, coastsidepoetry.org. This evening, we welcome Bay Area poet and host of many online poetry activities, Phynne-Belle. Phynne-Belle is a poet, writer, and co-director of the Poetry Global Network, as well as the creator of Phynne-Cabulary online open mic and programs. In 2021, she had her poetry included in 2 anthologies, Sinew, 10 Years of Poetry in the Brew, and the Bronx Memoir Project Anthology, Volume 5. Phynne has 1 poetry collection out entitled Some Days Here. She is passionate about crafting events and programs that make the literary arts accessible widely. You can follow her on Instagram at Phynne_Belle and on Twitter at Phynne-Belle. To connect with her in more ways, you can go to, well, I'm going to post that part in the chat. So anyway, now please welcome Phynne-Belle.
Thank you so much, Diane, and thank you, Steve. It is such a pleasure to be here at Coastside Poetry. Like Diane said, my name is Phynne-Belle, and I am here in the East Bay of the San Francisco Bay Area, the unceded lands of the Ohlone people. So the way that I normally like to do a feature is it's almost about as much about the transitions as it is about the poetry. I learned that from a brilliant poet that I met in 2021 named Lawin Bulatao. He does beautiful transitions that make every poem that is presented part of a longer story. I'm going to try something different today. I'm going to give you a few full-size poems, I guess you could say, but they're going to be interspersed with smaller poems like haikus, tanka, and what I like to call one-sentence poems. So we're going to start with a 1-sentence poem. It's called Delicious. Eve relented, took a full bite out of the blasted apple, and decided she craved cherry pie instead. My first poem is titled Original Sin. I will readily admit that when a phrase begins with the word original, the first word I think of following it is not inspiration, but sin. Perhaps 8 years of Catholic school really does that number on you, makes you think of just how much wrong you have committed and how much farther from salvation you have situated yourself, and how much penance you now owe the big guy to assure that St. Peter admits you beyond those pearly gates. Or perhaps what I'm doing is to complete the compound word unconsciously, like reflex in my mind. Original and sin are a bonded pair to me, kind of just like rum and Coke. Think about it. What would one be without the other? Honestly, I think either drunk or diabetic and the hamster wheel gamut that runs in between. I continue that line of thought, concentrating as if down on my knees upon the hard, narrow wood slat within the confessional box, or as if I were meditating very piously on the transgressions I have committed. But I began reciting easily inside my head like litany, the ripple effect of the devil convincing the serpent, and the serpent seducing Eve, and Eve enticing Adam, and how deplete and satiated, but also ashamed and buck naked all parties were at the end. I may stop to retrace my steps back at some point to determine my thought's origin, but inevitably become sidetracked and no longer care about where I achieved the connection, because daydreaming is infinitely more delicious in its succulent rapture, and I would rather begin to think of the cunning serpent as Carol's white rabbit, making our mother, Eve, into Alice. But no, I'm not satisfied with this answer, and I dig even deeper, and I find that Eve is really the rabbit. I find that Eve is not the instigator, but the inception. I find that Eve is a blessed event, the sainted bunny, leading us all down the silk walls of her rabbit hole. And here we realize, as we tumble among prayers and penance, that the rabbit was dear Alice all along, and was always as mad as the hare, the hatter, his raven, and writing desk alike, though still not quite the Cheshire cat, lip curled thick with all the answers, and certainly not yet the enlightened caterpillar, wise and all-knowing among their every quizzical mushroom. The queen, complacent in her red glory, is decidedly not Alice, not yet at least, not quite, but almost. I implore you, walk down the bramble patch with me on this. Is it blasphemy to place the queen right back in the center of her Garden of Eden? Is it revolution to recast her, reveal her, and not revile her? Is it conceit to rinse clean the propaganda and tell her story from the beginning? For it is the beginning when her mouth birthed the cosmos to first proclaim, "Let there be light." You feel you have heard it somewhere else from a prophet receiving and echoing scripture. You feel that I herald once more to you this mind-bending truth. When all is said and done, you'll believe God is a woman. God, godlike, God is divine. And pause, breathe, and absorb the sacred word. How could she not be? Believe. Oh, doubt or confess, and we might get blessed. Can you recall in the timeline when she, oh, so casually informed us, why, sometimes I've believed as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast, and then goes on and outdoes herself by +1. In dominion over the earth, every sea, flora and fauna, and still have time to kick up her heels in the pool, down a mimosa, looking that damn good. I, Eve, 1, percolating concept along with morning coffee, rabbit 2, through the tangle of warrens we lead you, red queen 3. I just flipped the eggs over medium, set the table 4 and 5, inspiration, original, and pulpy. No doubt, I think I'll have 6 sizzling thoughts before the bacon jumps the pan, flesh, not borrowed rib, fully cooked. Haiku. The face in the glass shifts to the left to see you walk away from me. This next poem is called We Linger Still. I rapped on the ceiling only twice, tiptoeing on my high perch, my egret slender limbs trembling, a high wire act, equal parts exhilaration and fear of being discovered. I rapped on the ceiling once more, slowed my heart, slowed my breathing, listened, waited. It was all I could do to suspend the lunacy looming mere inches over me, a storm cloud riling the ornate figures that in turn watched me, enraged clown-shaped faces, changing their moods in the waver of the candlelight, ready to condemn my slight movement as I hugged the wall. I waited, steady patience herself, because I knew that he heard me, the boy. I stood stock still, held my breath until he emitted his reply, the usual sigh, the room responding in unison with him, becoming warmer in the way of first days of summer, whenever he was present. Inside this space, he was almost always present, ready, rarely moving from the safety of the nook he made for himself when he first took up residence. But sometimes, when the moon tilted in the sky at the correct angle, he liked to squeeze through the growing tear that had formed between the thinness of the plaster. Here he made his way into the cove where one could spy upon the ballroom, and all its lascivious players. I would crawl in obediently after him, and we would stare in rapturous quiet at this, our own living zoetrope, marvel at the intimacies contortions would create when bodies became puzzle games to solve in languor, when bodies were codex and fingers and tongues were keys. The hush of this old edifice was also our language, and we heeded it. Forgotten children, lost children, we needed tending. This the manor knew. I was ever in awe, following this beautiful mute waif through endless mazes of corridors, feeling secure, knowing instinctively that his skin felt what the house was whispering to him as he touched its walls in passing, hearing how it would tell him to commune with shadows and shapes, and he would lean his head just so, cock his ear alongside the tapestry where it was shabby, where the drapes were redolent with the ancient scent that secrets leave, that past dalliances smudged, indelible in the fine cloth crinoline and forgotten whalebone, the only accomplices left behind, their paramours distilled in relics now locked beneath the glass of gilded frames and tightly sealed within curio case. All the old furniture remained. They have seen this house grow upward and outward. They have grown with it, grown older, grown more weary, grown more fragile. Still they join us, this blissful pact of soundlessness. Once upon a time, I danced among the living. My laughter brought in the light. I think there was a time before the house wooed me, when it filled its own chambers full of its suspicions, heavy in the air. These are how intrigues and scandal aspirate into airways and veins and come out bloodied, pulsing their venom, animated on multiple tongues. I think there was a time before my companion, before my dying star. What came first, acknowledgement or death? Left to myself, my mind is unclouded. I began to imagine I once more heard voices, invisible denizens, tumult, deafening, bouncing and echoing on every surface. Left to myself, I began lengthy, one-sided conversations with every piece of furniture, waiting for answers that never came. When prodded, none of the upholstered chairs cared to divulge what they knew. The translucent fine bone plates looked knowing, but would not dish their gossip. The ancient fleur-de-lis tea kettle atop them arch and haughty, but keeping her counsel, bone dry, no scandal to steep, nothing to spill. I think I told you about when I angered the nanny who chased me, her ghost child, through the great hall, past the army of mismatched statues milling about, congregating, and wailed out the obscurity of our inbred lineage to her, and she attempted to catch me so she could wrap me in her modesty. I ticked off a tale, a half falsity of a great uncle, once, twice, thrice removed, who procured these statues, who was swindled at every stop. None among these monstrosities, historical or classic, not one could claim the caress of the hand of a master of their dubious era. Every single one of them accomplished at pretending to be something they were not, that it was their own fibs, a curse that birthed them into their quietude. Here they remain in this absolute stillness of being. A skinny poem called The Space. Holding pattern in silence, holding air in absence of body, in holding pattern in this obsessive cycle, in longing, addiction sets in. Holding pattern. This next poem is called The Odyssey, Two Fish Swimming. Will you become crystalline in the constellations with me? I am goddess divine of love and fervor, of chaos and nightmare. Won't you swing with me, tempting a brooding Neptune to leap from his murky depths to swallow me as I sat astride him, teasing a stern Jupiter to compress my heavenly body beneath his mighty heft. I am of Hydra and Kraken. Heads multiply and limbs wind around your neck. Are you in awe, foyer mortal? As we combust into newborn bands of light, leaking primordial lust, ecstasy is contagious. Cronus erases the meaning of time as we rewind, move forward, and return, infinite deaths and rebirths in our cosmic embrace. We are making sweet space music as we pass by, siren tails catching upon the stars' edges, bringing you along with us in our cosmic whirl as we merge these titans anatomica. All the universe scrambles to take communion on the last drop of ambrosia. I am of Telus. I dance with the shadows that mock the hollows in the trees, where mother birds stored threads of borrowed golden fleece, and of Selene, wishing companions into being, so Eos would not have to pine for craven humans. And I have felt the cool of being dead, and of Morta, wedded to the ground, washing every upturned face pale in the light of the moon. Can you imagine the color that we create as we dance across a waning star on its way to join kindred heroes in the sky? I long to know if it worries you at all that this revelation of all 9 muses conceived in their own release in the pool that held Venus captive. Were you there, bearing witness in their beginning, when she shaped their souls in the wet sand that lapped at the foamy waters of her overflowing breast? When you awoke, shipwrecked, which of my fathoms did you pretend you conquered and claimed? You, treading on the shallow end. You who feared the maelstrom, saying, my sea green looked peaceful, unspoiled, should remain supine, to kiss your feet as you hide among lilac clouds. Come out and play, baby boy creation. I have parted the land and sea. History records how Calypso tossed you your sparks and bolds, ego salad on her waves. Who's the one who won't let go now? Passion is obsession, is deception, is compassion. She lulls tropical storm, whispers into your flattered ear. Circe could care less, could care more, has cared more. What does it matter to you? Mother, sister, lover. You want the fantasy when you cannot see the enchantress above for the sea nymph below. And now you find yourself too addicted. Boys playing at seafaring heroes find in the end that they cannot leave. While you slumbered and ignored the weather, lover, I changed my visage 3 times before you awoke. 3 more times as you walked away. Why does cowardice make you believe every divinity in creation is the Janus-faced monster crossing your cursed path? We are women, only women. And because of this, you weep. Is my time up, Diane? Want to make sure. You let me know. I could stop. This is a good stopping point. It's up to you.
Oh, sorry, I was muted and I said, no, your time isn't up. No,
Oh, okay. Wonderful.
No, you have,
Thank you. Awesome. Thank you so much.
You're going to read another poem or so. Sorry, I forgot I was muted.
No worries. Thank you so much. Tanka. Out to sea, the wave, brave, seeks others of her kind, hurries back, nestled. She flirts, flicks her foam outward, an ebb and flow mating call. This poem is called Sea Air. It will be your sleeping face that stirs my passion still. I will temper what craves in seaweed movement, sleek, hidden away. I anticipate our time of awakening. I would like to feign the slumber a minute longer. I would like to play pretend at first, my eyelids toppled half-moon crescents, your senses igniting your body conscious. A torrent washes over us, laps at my toes, overwhelms my still burrowed face. I separate our swimming forms. Can a mere human hand divide the return of the tide from the ocean into which it nestles? You muttered unintelligible dreams last night, wrangled the sun to singe my skin, and the moon of me curved and moaned and hastened her 8 phases. We do not sink into the whirlpool forming between our love-welded bodies, prizing us apart to sample and savor our dark desire's depth. We summon the skies to our aid. He cries and rumbles in response. I cannot deny us, the tight-lipped oyster, the obscure pregnant telltale in her curved shell, the secretive pearl at her core. I am fiendish as I hoard her, she the one who holds our fervent invocation. Unthing, toward the world far away, to remain ashore. I will be our sentinel. The sirens chant, their tails tunneling the way to Fathom's cellar. I will hold you back from answering their call. I am the lighthouse and you are the shipwreck. My voice carries through the heavy curtain night, diverts you, you reach for me to touch the twin flames upon the tips of my breast. Anticipate the honed, frantic entry into these harbors, your safety. It is here at long last, you recognize home. I am the waters that flow around you, a remembering of each life becoming and going. I am the sea witch in your ripened, opalescent half-dream. I refuse you the oxygen to inhale deeply into your lung chambers. I will steal back that air. I want you to awaken, to breathe back into this life on your own. And I wanted to close with 2 one-sentence poems. The first one-sentence poem is called Cell. Release the frightened words, bound and silenced, laying on the stony floor of your tongue. Return. This time promise me there is no letting go, lest we forget the way back. And that's it from me. I want to hear everybody else. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much,
Thank you so
Phynne-Belle.
much.
Oh, I'd like to invite folks to unmute and make appreciative noises. Oh,
Bravo!
thank you so much.
Hooray!
Thanks. That was fun.
Good show, Sugar.
Thank you.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
The creatures we met, so many people, so many characters. Love that.
The sounds, the images, just amazing. Like being in another world.
Thank you so much. The sea always calls to me.
Flowing.
Is English your first language?
Yes, English is my first language. I learned Tagalog when I was 10, and then we lived in the Philippines from the time I was 10 to 18.
You're amazing. Thank you.
Thanks so much.
It is wonderful work, and you also read in an extraordinary manner. You had me right there.
I love that. Thank you. Again, the sea tide. I go with the rhythm of the sea. That's where the lull is.
Gorgeous work.
Yeah, I enjoyed your selection tonight, Phynne-Belle. Was really just wowed by it. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nuria.
I just wanted to say one more thing, Phynne. I hope you save the chat because there's so many great comments in there. Sometimes I'm featuring, I forget to, so do save it.
Thank you, Sandy.
Sure.
Darling, you were brilliant as always. I'm never surprised by it, but the elegance never, ever fails
Thank you, Mama. Thank you for
amazing.
being here.
Of course.
Oh, well, again, thank you so much, Phynne-Belle, and we'll stop recording in a moment. Those of you in the Zoom room, please stay online if you'd like to take part in the open mic. Thanks to all our YouTube listeners. Please tune in for our next regular Coastside Poetry event on Tuesday, May 9th, I think it is, when we'll welcome another Bay Area poet, Lee Rossi. Thanks so much for joining us at Coastside Poetry and for helping to keep the lamps of poetry burning.